introduce yourselves? I want to start with you, Tiffany.
Sure. Hi, Tiffany Mitsui. I am a director of product marketing at AT&T, specifically focused on audience segmentation strategy. And prior to this, so I started in June, so relatively new. Prior to this, I worked at Home Depot, so that's kind of the retail connection. Worked in media strategy there, went on to agile marketing and also multicultural marketing.
Yep. And hi, everyone. My name is Shahan. I've been at Wayfair for about 4.5 years now, all within the marketing organization. I lead our customer communications channels or lifecycle marketing, so email, push, and SMS. Before Wayfair, I had zero marketing or retail or e-com experience. I was kind of lucky that I got hired. But I have a kind of very boring financial services and consultancy type of background that I don't like to talk too much about. But, yeah.
And we both went to Duke. Woo!
Two Blue Devils right here. Very exciting. I don't know if MediaPost did that on purpose, but I thought it was a happy coincidence there. So I thought today maybe a good jumping off point could be empathy. It's a word that gets thrown around all the time when we talk about engagement. So maybe just at a high level, what do you guys keep in mind in terms of empathy as you begin to analyze the customer journey?
Yeah, so I think it's just really important to, stay focused on the customer's potential pain points across their journey, but also thinking not just about how they're engaging with your brand, but thinking about all of the brands that are getting kind of slammed in their face day to day. So really just being empathetic about, all of the messages that they're receiving, all of the places that they're shopping, and just thinking through how yes, that affects you and your brand and how you respond, but just keeping in mind all of the different touch points that a customer has.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Wayfair is like a very technical, data-oriented marketing organization. And so we, slice and dice the data a bunch of different ways to try and find like points in the customer journey to kind of inflect that customer behavior. But I try to reinforce with my team the same exact thing that, you really need to. There's no like replacement for just talking to people to better understand their needs and frustrations. So, Wayfair, we're trying to like reorient our brand towards this core target of star families. So, presence of a child under 5 in the household, and like 90% of my team are young professionals or a few years out of college. So they just have like no idea, right? And so, just trying to reinforce with them that go talk to people, talk to your parents, talk to your older siblings, your friends that are starting your families, and that'll then help you create more informed hypotheses about new journeys or new campaigns or new touch points to kind of help support that customer.
Okay, so one of the things that I think is so misleading is when we say customer journey, we always make it sound like they're moving in a straight line, and they almost never are. So maybe if you could just sort of describe for each of the brands, and you can even talk about Home Depot if you want, what that journey might look like.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like, I think when someone's actively shopping for something, the journey doesn't look that different than any other, like, e-com funnel. And so we have our, like, browse abandonment, cart abandonment touch points to help, like, nudge people along the journey. But to your point, like, for home in particular, what we try to think a lot about is that there are just a lot of different jobs to be done, and so customers can be on multiple different shopping journeys at different stages at the same exact time, and that can be very confusing. It can look like a very non-linear shopping experience. And so what's really important is just when you're thinking about new campaigns or new recommendation strategies or whatever, is to just try and be able to like parse all of that out, so that if you just try and like smush everything together in one email or one campaign or whatever, it can start to become like a very nonsensical experience. And so just being cognizant of that is super important.
Yeah, and I'd say, from a connectivity perspective, we're just really focused on understanding. We're constantly surveying people, trying to figure out, okay, what are your triggers to potentially switch? A lot of times, obviously, customers are, thinking about, pretty much everyone has a cell phone. So we hear a lot that there really isn't differentiation between brands, right? And so how are we kind of capturing those moments? How are we in front of those customers when their bill is higher than they expected, or they don't have service somewhere, right? Those are kind of the triggers that we look for along their journey to then say, all right, this may be a point where we can capture this customer. And then obviously internally, what data do we have? How do we segment those customers? How do we think through how we can speak to them through all of the different channels that we're speaking to them through? It's just really important to kind of also understand it's not linear, right? They come in, they come out, they're coming to our site, they may be talking to a friend, they're coming into our stores. So, there are just different touch points that you really have to be mindful of.
I just would love to get some specific examples. So moving house is something that we talked about a lot. And it's many different things have to happen. You have to sell something, you have to buy something, you have to pack, you have to decide if you're bohemian or mid-century, you have to make all these decisions. So along the way, could you tell us about some of the steps where Wayfair specifically builds engagement?
Yeah, I mean, where we've had a lot of success recently is trying to de-average or branch out existing customer flows. So our post-order marketing touchpoints, I think, is a good example of that, right? So if someone's bought a coffee table, right, our traditional play has been, we'll send them a bunch of complimentary product recommendations for that coffee table. We'll send you the area rug or the end table or the side table or whatever. But really kind of taking that jobs to be done mentality, that's just one example of something that a customer could be needing to do is redoing their living room. It could be the case that they're shopping for a coffee table and a dining table and a patio umbrella, right? And maybe they just moved, and so maybe the best thing to do is send them the dining table and the umbrella and ignore the living room for a little bit. Or maybe they just need a coffee table and that's it. And they're not planning on buying anything else. And so at that point, you really treat them as kind of more of a lower intent customer. Or the broader customer context is super important as well, right? So I think apparently everyone here has a story about how Wayfair had a screwed up delivery to their house, right? As I was hearing it at dinner and drinks yesterday. And so maybe at the coffee table arrived damaged, and the best thing we can do is just shut up for a little while until we resolve that problem, right? And so yeah, just I think we tend to think about these flows, whether it's your cart abandon or your welcome journey or whatever, as very homogenous groups of customers, but you can just one extra double click, I think, can drive a lot of increased engagement.
Yeah, and when I was at Home Depot on the agile marketing / audience marketing team, I led the movers customer initiative, and so what we worked on was truly just mapping what this customer could be going through across the journey, from a pre-move, during move, after move. And I think a lot of times, internally, merchandising might say, well, moving is my category because I sell moving boxes. But really what we found was that it's a whole company initiative, right? Because when you're thinking about moving, you're starting to fix your house up, and that could be a myriad of different products and services. We don't have moving services, but we can certainly partner with those sorts of companies, or, maybe that's when we're pushing the moving boxes to our customers. But after move, up to a certain point, we might, we also, Home Depot has a kind of home furnishings part of their company as well. So when do you get the signal that you're pushing out now that someone has been in their home for 6 months? They might need a new mirror, they might need this or that. So I think it was really exciting to see something that was a whole company journey when most people internally were kind of thinking that it wasn't, right? So again, and then you're selling a house, you're buying a house at the same time, or maybe you came from an apartment. That's a different mindset. So you're then segmenting your customer into different pockets, so to speak. And then, hey, you still got to work. You got to take your kids to school. Moving is such a frustrating process to begin with. So just really making sure that you're kind of understanding all of the different touch points that someone may encounter is really critical to then being able to, give them what they need at the right time.
Yeah, Shahan, I love that talking about the smashed coffee table. So maybe this is a good moment to ask about what can go wrong. So I probably don't want to hear from you if I just got a shut. If I'm in the middle of a billing dispute with you, I'm probably not going to be very engaged.
Right, exactly.
So what goes wrong, and how do you get it right?
Yeah, I think, when the people who manage those sort of channels in our billing process and the messages that you put on a bill, right? I think there's a lot of A/B testing around things like that. But again, utilizing the data that you have around that customer. How long have they been a customer? How long have they had an issue with you? A billing issue. Are you investigating it? But also, recently, since I'm relatively new to AT&T, I actually did a store visit where I went in and just kind of observed, what's going on in the store, and comparing it to what I experienced at Home Depot, it was just very different, right? Like at Home Depot, people are coming in, they're shopping, they may or may not want to talk to a service representative. at AT&T, there weren't a lot of people coming in, but there were people with very clear problems. Like, hey, my daughter's Apple Watch doesn't sync to my phone anymore. And I was shocked because I think my perception was that people are just coming into the store to maybe purchase a phone or pay a bill, but really the people in the store are also have to be problem solvers. So I thought that was really interesting to, again, reinforce that across this journey, in every channel that you have to kind of have that connectivity. Whether someone's picking up the phone to complain about something or coming directly into the store, if your associates aren't really understanding what the problem is or they don't have the notes on it in the system, that is a frustrating process for the customer, right? So we're very customer first. We want to make sure that you have your connectivity buttoned up from end to end. So that was a really interesting kind of thing to see, to be able to, again, reinforce how important it is for the entire company to just be in lockstep and make sure you're thinking about the customer first and then resolving solutions.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, we have a very automated, recommendations focused program for our comms channels, email in particular, and so it can just there can be a lot of wonky edge casey type of experiences that come out because of that, and so we tend to put a lot of focus on just trying to take care of the customer experience and provide a little bit more of a cohesive experience. So a classic example that we always get is we have a very wide selection of products on site, right? And so our chief commercial officer or something got an email once where he's shopping for ranges and Halloween inflatables at the same time, right? And so you have this double burner, 5-knob, whatever, stainless steel oven range, and next to it is a product recommendation for Skeletor 20-foot on a motorcycle or something, right? And so just trying to identify those opportunities and trying to say okay, maybe this is what the algorithm picked out, but we really want to put some more human guardrails on top of it to make sure that it's sensical is super important.
That's Skeletor. He's a big seller. So you both talked about the importance of storytelling, authentic storytelling. I feel like they're some of the most abused words in all of marketing these days. How does that kind of content play into building engagement, and how do you test it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, email is it's a channel that plays across a bunch of different parts of the spectrum, right? So we're not necessarily super duper duper upper funnel, but with part of the brand campaign that we launched, right? We have a bunch of content, we have a bunch of influencer content that's coming through into that we want to make sure that we're feeding through to our customer list to make sure that we're reinforcing the brand, right? And all of the efforts that our TV teams and our display teams, et cetera, our more upper funnel teams are going through and doing. And so it's a balance. We try to think about it as kind of a diet, right? So and try and segment customers as much as possible. So if someone's super duper high intent and really about to pull the trigger on something, right? Maybe that's not the best time to inject kind of a more brand moment in that diet. But for someone who is maybe not going through an active shopping journey, and you maybe don't have as many signals on them that you can kind of send them things, maybe that's the right play to have there, right? And so I was just kind of testing that. We have very as was mentioned, data-driven A/B testing culture, but just trying to take bigger swings, I think, is super important to make sure that you're thinking about not just the short term, but also the broader cultivation of the customer for the brand.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's just very data-driven. How do you, from my perspective, we're talking about certain segments, talking to certain segments, whether they be wireless customer versus an internet customer who's both, you're thinking about just looking at all of the data that you have to really be able to segment those customers and then build the right message for them. And then similar, right, data-driven creative testing is really important. So a lot of A/B testing, testing across channels is critical to see, kind of how you're, again, back to the customer journey, how is that customer seeing your message across everything that you have is really important. So a lot of that is, deep work that we're doing as well.
A lot of the engagements both of your brands build are very inspiring. They're very big and inspiring, and then a lot of them are practical. And like you said, you don't want to be inspired when you want your watch to sync. It's how are you kind of feel like you're acing the pivot between the two of them when I'm the same customer who needs both?
Yeah, I think that's, when you think about just media planning and as Aaron said, full funnel marketing, like you just have the right message in the right place at the right time. So AT&T does a lot of big brand messaging, Masters, NCAA, all of that, obviously, to drive the message that we are, the connectivity, you should be your connectivity service of choice, and this is why. But also down to, again, when you get down to the data and really whether that be, segmenting our current customers and really analyzing the things that from our data we see that they may need. They see it all, of course, but I think it's really critical to have that big brand messaging out there to reinforce that, we are here to provide you with end-to-end connectivity. We're a solid company, but also at the end of the day, when you have an issue or, a bill, we're messaging you directly and we are here for you, in that sense to help you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easier part is the segmenting and knowing when to send someone what, right? So if someone's actively shopping for a sofa and they need information or specs or something or a buying guide or something, it's we know when that needs to go in. I think the harder part or the bigger challenge for us is just getting all of the content needs and scaling that content creation pipeline so that we have all of the things to your point, Tiffany, meeting. We have all content that can meet all your needs at different parts in the journey for all of the different categories that we have as well. So that's the harder part for us and something that's an ongoing struggle, right? So
you're both in very competitive categories in different ways, but maybe if you could tell us which KPIs you watch most closely in terms of engagement and what you think people most often misunderstand, whether it's people within your own organization or people in the marketing world in general.
Yeah, I mean, for us, our goal is just to drive longer-term CLV and loyalty, right? So we try to take as much of a long-term view as possible, and particularly for home, we're lucky if we get 2 purchases a year from someone. A lot of times, unless they're a new mover or something, or have a very specific need at that point in time. And so that's the objective. And so what we try to figure out is how do we work backwards from that to figure out the leading indicators of that good engagement, for lack of a better term, right? But I do think that a lot of times, what organizationally we get tripped up on, I think a lot of folks up here have said it, is just there's that short-term mentality of we need the revenue, or we need the visits, or we need the traffic now. And it's not necessarily a trade-off, but you just have to take more care about the long-term versus short-term effects, right? So I think that's where we get tripped up a lot, but there's no great answer, right? We try and do holdouts as much as possible when we're adding new campaigns. We try and do 60-day tests versus 2-week tests or things like that, just to make sure that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot from a long-term perspective. But it's a hard balance at the end of the day. So,
how about time spent engaging? I'm just curious, how long do most of us shop for a couch, or a coffee table?
It's surprisingly short. I think our consideration cycle on average is something 10 to 11 days. I honestly am surprised that people buy sofas online. I don't think that I would ever do it, but yeah, I got to get in that customer mindset. It's a higher ticket item. It is a considered purchase, but it's not crazy long, right? So I think usually within a week to a week and a half, you kind of know if that person's gonna buy the thing or not. But sometimes it's not the case, right? So I'm a classic example of there are a bunch of different jobs we've done. We bought a house during the pandemic, and so we had a baby, we got a puppy, right? We did the hat trick, and so there's a lot of things that we just need to do for the house. And there are certain things that when we moved, there's a mantle above our fireplace. It's super nice, solid wood, but when we moved in, we noticed there's a chip in it. And so I went to Wayfair, I found a mantle that I liked, added to my cart, and then just deleted it. And I've done that 10 times over the last 4 years, right? And so sometimes it's just, you just have to be cognizant of the fact that there's a to-do list, and to your point, people have limited time and energy to do these things. And so just trying to make sure that you're thinking about all of the different things that someone needs to do, and taking all those signals into account and storing those and then activating against it is really critical.
Yeah, I think from a mobility perspective, I think we're constantly surveying people, hey, why are you planning on switching? When? How, are you looking? Are you constantly shopping around? And we see a variety of answers, but, I was talking to someone about this earlier. If you really think about it, a lot of people, because again, a lot of people think that the service is pretty much the same across all of these brands, right? It's kind of the customer perception. They're thinking, okay, the moment when, I had an important meeting and I'm working from home and my internet went out, and it goes out every day. I've had issues like that. And so, those are the moments where customers start to think, oh, I need to start looking. I need to maybe look for something else. But with a service like ours, again, it's everybody has it. You're kind of just like, okay, I'll get to it. But when that moment, that big pain point comes, then you're just, completely over it and you start to look. And that's why it's so important for us to constantly be in front of the customer, right? In different ways, whether that be just our paid media plans, obviously on our own channels, our websites, just making sure that we're there, ready to service that customer. So yeah, I think the cycle it varies, but for most people, I think it's sort of something happens and then you're ready to go.
It's so interesting. Tiffany, let's just stay with you for a minute, because in a way you guys are like totally opposite. I may buy 2 sectional couches in my life, and I'm trapped in the loving arms of AT&T every single day. And you are, we have a financial relationship, right? We've got, you're billing me. How does that make it easier and harder to keep me happy?
Yeah, I think that's why we're so focused on, again, customer first, understanding what those overall pain points are across all of our channels to make sure that, internally as a company, we're kind of connecting those dots and trying to make that relationship stronger and easier. And, we have other services, other sub-products that we sell, right, that added security or, insurance, this and that. And we want to make sure that we're giving those to our customers or serving those at the right time. But those are important because we're sharing with you that we have more than just a connection to a tower, right? Like we care about you and your security and how you kind of engage and connect with your family and how you connect with work, if that's, important to you. So just things like that, yeah, it's frustrating. You're paying a bill that may be more than you thought, but, we do a lot of work to make sure that our customer service representatives, that everyone internally is, really thinking through those challenges and how do we make it right for the customer, because the customer is always right.
Great. Well, listen, thank you so much. And I think we now have to go to questions, I believe. Yeah.
This hand just shot up over here for questions. We are ready to go.
Well, I just wanted to say, first of all, Lori from Date Axle, but love Wayfair as far as return policy. So thank you for making it really easy. I'm not very rarely angry with you, so that's awesome. But around like customer journey and looking at things, not just about what products people are buying, but how are you looking at like someone's been in their home for, let's say, 10 plus years? Are you looking at that kind of information to do segmentation and just actively prospecting?
Yeah, I mean, we try as much as possible to utilize as much third-party data as we can, and so like in identifying new movers and things like that, like there are a bunch of services and vendors that we can use to try and get those signals into play and then activate against it. And then really what we're starting to step into now is just, again, like asking customers and trying to get that zero-party data. And so we've partnered with some folks to do things like quizzes on site just to understand what your style is or what room you're shopping for, or if you're a homeowner or not. To really, and then utilizing those in kind of what you're saying, the segmentation and the journey building. So just trying to take like a bunch of different angles at it. But yeah, I mean, it's less likely that someone that's been in their house for 10 years has that like moment where they have to like spend a ton of money, right, in the specific category. They might do like a seasonal refresher or do more like a decor thing or have kind of specific needs at points in time. But that's why the new mover identification is super important.
I was just chatting with my friend Steven about how important content is across the entire customer engagement. Steven, do you want to ask the question that you just asked me?
Wow, I get put on the spot just like that. Huh? That's fantastic. No, I actually have really enjoyed today the fact that content has even been discussed. We talk about spots and dots so often, and it's nice to be able to shift that a little bit. But when it comes to the customer life cycle, right, the customer journey across the board, like you guys didn't talk a whole lot about content today. What importance does content play in the overall customer journey, not just in the marketing portion of it, but the actual understanding of the brand from the time you find out about it until you become a loyal customer?
I mean, I think it's very important. And, again, from my perspective as kind of this audience segmentation person, it's the ability to, create the different messages for the different segments that you might be targeting, and then aligning it to the relevant channels that is really critical. So I think, overarchingly, you have your brand message and what your value proposition is, but again, you have to cut that down to, all right, well, I'm still trying to sell something, right? And, this segment might want this sort of service versus that. We talked, I think, Aaron, you mentioned something about value. We think a lot about value customers and what does that content look like for them versus someone who, may not care about what their bill looks like or is on auto pay. I think we're talking about that with the Simul Media crew earlier. So yeah, it's really important. It's just how do you kind of get that content built quickly? Where do you test it to make sure that it's resonating?
Take that. Oh, we have time for one more question. Only because John sees you 14 times a year and you're part of the family now.
All good. So actually, two questions, one for each. I'll keep it simple, though. Question for Wayfair. So my wife has about 300 pillows decorative in the basement. How do I get rid of those? And then AT&T
Facebook Marketplace.
I guess so, right? And then also, like, how do you view kind of the blend between really kind of B2B and B2C, right? Because a lot of us in the room and a lot of people, especially post-COVID even, are really kind of businesses working from home, right? And so running individual businesses from home, but as AT&T customer with, I think we have 15 lines now, right? Between fiber, all the wireless services, right? So how do you view that, right? Because it's really kind of that blend between a customer, but also like a heavy business use customer as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say I'm not on the B2B side of our business. That's a different organization, so I probably don't have the exact answer. But you're right. You're a customer, but you're a customer in both. But it's different when you're talking about how you're helping me make money versus just I'm just picking up my cell phone or logging on for work on any given day. I think we do, a lot of work to try to understand and, again, segment the customer need based on business size, based on, business type, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into that. And then, of course, again, I am not in the space, but I can only imagine that we're obviously connecting if you're, through our consumer kind of B2C, you've had an account with us and now you're trusting us with your business. Just working through that relationship, making sure that you're kind of continuing that. We can't have it in silos, right? The customer doesn't think about AT&T as B2B, B2C. They're just thinking about AT&T. So, there's a lot of work that goes on internally about just making sure that we're understanding the customer holistically, whether B2B or B2C.
Shahan, Tiffany, Sarah, thank you so much.